This video can be one of the most life-changing videos you've ever watched. I wish I would have had a video like this 40 years ago. And not sure why I'm doing it really today, except that I feel really pulled to do it. Now, it's one of the things I'm going to talk about some today is following your intuition and your guidance. So this video is about living with people and loving people in the midst of their living and their dying. And you may have somebody in your life who is on a path that may end in their death. They have an illness. And even if you don't have anybody in your life like that right now, you will someday. Live long enough, it will happen. And so I wanted to do this video again so that you might remember when those times come up, some of these words. And if you know anybody who is in that place right now, where someone they love is on their path towards death, share this video with them. This is going to be a 30 to 45 minute video, so if you don't have time to watch it now, share it with yourself. Come back and watch it or listen to it. It's just going to be me talking. Maybe just listen to it while you're driving and just see what, if anything, there is for you. Because someday, somebody you love will pass away. I am got a little bit of a sniffle and scratchy throat, so I may drink my tea a little bit during this video, or blow my nose if it gets too runny for me. And but again, I just really felt led to do this video today. I'm not sure why. Who am I, first of all? Well, I'm Cathy Naiser. I am a real estate agent in the San Antonio area, and I'm a performance coach, a mindset, business, and transformation coach. So I do work with business owners. I'm really working with their businesses in real estate and outside of real estate. Really the strategy and the details of their business, their money. But I'm also a performance and mindset coach. So I help people shift levels in their thinking and their performing in lots of areas of their life, their career, their money, their relationships. I even do a 3-month program where we do a full breakthrough a day of, I wouldn't really call it intense, but it's focused work where we look at and really discover all the limiting beliefs someone has, and then we work on releasing those. And then we have a 3-month process to follow that up so that they can really move forward, because it's not just that one day, it's the whole thing. So my business is a lot about helping people move forward. In real estate, I happen to work with a lot of probate and estate sales. Many of those people have just had someone pass away. And, you know, when our parents are aging, for sure, sometimes when one passes, a few years later, the other one does. And so this video is as much for my real estate clients, my own database who may be dealing with this, my coaching clients, anybody out there really in the world that might be able to use it. So I have had the unique opportunity, I think, to be with a few people in their dying. And I have learned so much through it. One of the patterns I have in my life is that I get the unconscious knowing to reconnect with someone, not right when they're dying, certainly a good while before, but that has happened a number of times. And it started with my younger brother. He and I were never really close. We more competed than anything. I didn't compete with him. I think he competed with me. And this video is going to have a lot of my own personal stories. So if anything, if you learn through stories, you'll like this. My brother, he and I had the good fortune to really connect about 1.5 years before he died. He was killed in a car wreck when he was 19 and I was 21. I wasn't with him when he died. Obviously, he was in a wreck by himself. But that 1.5 years before was so amazing. And so I was really so blessed to have been able to reconnect with him. My I had a good friend, Carolyn, in my late 20s, early 30s, where we were really good friends. In fact, we at different points called each other our best friends, spiritual sisters in a sense. We studied the same kinds of things, and she and I were very, very close. And then life just started happening, and we went our separate ways. Now and then we would check in with each other, but it wasn't like we were deeply in each other's lives. And then I heard that she was sick. There was a prayer service for her. And I went to the prayer service and I said, "Where is she? What's going on?" And the people who were leading the prayer said, "Don't go see her. This is time for family." I thought, bullshit. Bullshit. Carolyn is my friend and I am going to see her. And if you have the urge to reconnect with someone, whether they're sick or not, follow it. So I did. And of course I told her about it and she said, "Of course you should have come to me." And so she wasn't actively dying at that point, but she had cancer, she was sick, and she and I over the next year or so spent a good amount of time together. We would just hang out together. We would do puzzles together. I hate puzzles, but I would sit and do puzzles with her, and it was just really nice just to be alongside her. Then she was going through some more treatment. Things weren't going as well as she wanted. I went to see her after her, doctor's visit after a new round of treatment, and apparently it had kind of an adverse effect. It didn't help things go away, it made things worse. And it's like the tumor just reacted and grew to the treatment, and now the tumor was pressing on her heart. So she was in hospice. I was, my early 30s. I had no idea. I hadn't watched a video like this. I didn't know how long she had or what that meant. And she asked me at that time, would I be one of the ones who would sit with her at night so her family could rest? And I, of course, said yes, I would. Now, she was buying a condo. She had been buying it. She had decided when she was sick she really wanted to have a condo again. She was buying it. And they got her moved into it. And then we started the rotation. When the gal called me to say, "Can you come Tuesday?" I had a cold. And I was so not aware of how to be with someone or how far along she was. So I said, I have a cold. I feel really bad being with her when I have a cold. Like that would hurt her in her state. She died that night. And it was a really good thing that I didn't go because I really didn't know how to be there. Again, I hadn't watched a video like this. My good friend Scott was there, and he was perfect for her in those final hours. Now, I made my peace with Carolyn, and I'm grateful I wasn't there, but it made me hyper alert in my life that was something I wanted to do differently in the future. I didn't want to miss someone that I loved, their last moments, because I wasn't prepared. And so I hope that this video might prepare you for many years down the line when you need it. I'm not a high I personality. I'm a high D, pretty direct, driven, and I don't have a million friends, but I've had some very, very good, deep friendships, and I value those deeply. Carolyn was one of those people. Now, through my life, I many years ago had been a Catholic nun, and I was about 4 years. I was in the convent, and when I left the convent, I was so immersed in Catholicism at the convent. We knew everything that was going on with the church. We knew what the Pope was doing. We prayed together. And when I left, this was back in the 80s, the Catholic Church was not really a place where the regular people involved. It was very priest driven. It was in English, but it was still very priest driven. And when I left the convent, the Catholic Church was very empty for me. And so I left the church and stayed away for 25 years. And then I was, through different circumstances in my life, wanted a community again. I checked out lots of communities and all kinds of churches. I met with the minister. I'm a pretty progressive person, and so really conservative things don't always work for me. So I wanted to know about their elders. I wanted to know about their rules, where women fit in the church. And I found a Catholic church in San Antonio that was very open and progressive. The priest was very progressive. And I started visiting it and then decided to go to it. And when I started going to that church, I didn't believe everything they said. But I sang in the choir and I played my guitar, and there was a community there that was really cool. In the Catholic Church, they have something called ACTS retreats, ACTS. And they have them for women and for men and for teens. I had heard about them for years, and I wanted to go on one. The first one that I had the opportunity to go to, I couldn't, something came up. Then the next one, I had something booked there, I was out of town. So I really wanted to go, not so much because I needed a retreat. I'd been on a spiritual path my whole life. And so I looked out in advance on the calendar. They had them once a semester. And 6 months in advance, I put it on the calendar. No matter what, I am going to that retreat. And I'm saving that. No matter what comes up, I'm going to that retreat. The reason I wanted to go is because I wanted to make friends. I was in this new church. I didn't know a lot of people. And when you go to that retreat, I'd heard you kind of walk away with 60 friends, 60 sisters. So I wanted to go. And when I got to the retreat, I went, they have talks, and then after the talk you go to tables and you talk with each other, and there are exercises. And I went through all the different talks and the exercises. And again, I'd been on a spiritual path for a long time. I'd been to many retreats. So most of the talks, they didn't affect me. Other people cried. I participated until the last talk, the very last talk. And on that talk, you don't usually go back to the tables. But that talk was about a woman sharing how she walked the journey with her mother on her mother's path to death. And how she did that lovingly, spiritually, and she did the same thing with her sister. And when that talk happened, I still get kind of choked up. I knew why I was at that retreat. And I cried. That ugly cry. You know what I mean? Like, ugly cry. And so we're in the circle singing Amazing Grace after the song. And the whole room knew I was crying. And again, we weren't supposed to go back to our tables, but the leader of the retreat was going, I think we need to go back to the tables and just let anybody share anything they want to share. So we went back to the table, and Esme was our table leader. She was sitting there with her eyes open. She didn't want to look at me, but she kind of said, does anybody want to say anything? I'm like, bleh. And I said, I know why I'm here. I know why I came to this one. And it's so amazing that I planned it 6 months in advance. Because the night before that retreat, my mother told me she had cancer. And I knew the path I wanted to take was in that journey with her, whether she recovered or whether she didn't. I wanted to walk that with her lovingly and profoundly. So I made the decision at that retreat that starting that week, I would go home every Thursday. So they lived 3 hours away. I had a very busy real estate practice at the time. A small team. I was selling a lot of listings. And still, once a week I was going there. And I talked to the priest. I asked him, could I be a communion minister? Could I give communion to my family? My dad was sick. He was in dialysis. My mom now had cancer. And I didn't, they weren't going to church. So I thought that that would be a way that we could connect spiritually a little bit. Both of them had been to Acts retreats. So the priest said, absolutely. He took me through the process and said, okay, you're good. So I went and saw my mom, and I said, I'm a communion minister. We can do a little prayer service when I come if you want. And we did that for a while, and it was nice. And then we stopped, and that was okay too. But the point was that I was choosing to be extremely connected with my mother in a loving way on her path. And I told her, we're not just daughters and mothers here, we're sisters too. And that opened up a lot. So my mom and I, my whole life, and I can tell you the story, but I won't here, we were really not close. We, my older sister was born right before me, a year and a half before me. So when I'm in the womb, my older sister's born, and she contracted an illness in her first year that left her profoundly brain damaged. She was in and out of hospitals, almost dying, and I was a brand new born. So my mom did not have time for me, and my older sister, God bless her, was the one who fed me and did all that kind of stuff. My mom and I just kind of looked at each other from the distance growing up. I have a shy dog, Ricky. Ricky loves me, yet he cannot come up to me. He's good with other people. I think my deep voice, everything reminds him of somebody that maybe he treated him badly. I don't know. But he will look at me like he wants to love me, and he just doesn't know how to. That's a little bit how my mom and I were through my life until the last 10 years. One of those times, again, where I reconnected with her through circumstantial events in a deeper way. It's like I let down a lot of the barriers that I had, a lot of the beliefs that I had about her, and we could finally be close. So 10 years goes by, we are close, we are connected. We had this thing, I would call her and she'd say, you got my message. She said, I never call you because you're busy, but I just think about you and you always call me. It's like we had this really psychic connection, and so that went on for 10 years, and then now she's in this process, and I'm going home on Thursdays to be with her. And November, this was September, was the retreat. In November, she got to ring the bell. We weren't quite sure what all that meant, but she was doing better. They thought she went through a round of treatment. They didn't see any reason to do any more right then. In January, she started falling, and they found 6 tumors in her brain. She died in April. And so now between January and April, I am going back home 2 to 3 times a week. That's a long time when you're a busy real estate agent. In fact, I was doing listing appointments at night. I was doing all this. I was driving back and forth to Port Lavaca 3 times a week, 2 times a week. And I was exhausted. And one night on the way, after a listing appointment on the way home, I had a wreck. And it was, damaged my car pretty bad. I was bruised up, but I was okay. My coach at the time, Monica Reynolds, said, that's it. You're getting a driver. Monica Reynolds, you can hear her say that. And so I hired a driver who would drive me in my car to my appointments, and he would wait for me. I got him to wait down the street sometimes so it wouldn't look like weird to the people, because they didn't necessarily get it. The wealthy people thought, cool driver, I want one too. The not so wealthy people going, what is that? So I had to learn how to navigate that, but I could work in the back seat. I could make phone calls in the back seat. I could eat lunch if I didn't have time to. I could sleep if I needed to, and he took me to all of my appointments. So this is how I'm living through January through April. I want to intersect another story here. I had a very good friend, Lydia. She and I were friends so we taught together for 35 years. And through some unfortunate circumstances and misunderstandings and whatever, we kind of not just went our separate ways, we stopped that friendship. And as I'm doing all of this with my mom, I've always kept a picture of Lydia on my bookshelf, and it's a picture of Lydia and me. I have it over there still. But it was on a bookshelf in the side of the room, and I walked into my office, and on the floor in the middle of the room was that picture of Lydia and me. And so I called her, I said, I think the universe is telling us we need to reconnect. And she said, come over. So I did. And her partner of the time worked with a lot of hospice nurses and worked in hospice with people. And I learned so much from them. Reconnected with Lydia, which was just beautiful. And, we had to come up with a word, because every time we'd get together or talk, we'd want to say, I'm so sorry we drifted apart. And so we finally came up with a word that would say all of that and be more positive. The word was siempre, which means always. And so we would, instead of saying I'm so sorry and all that, we would just say siempre. And we both knew what that meant. Nothing would ever get in the way of our friendship again. And so I really learned a lot about death and dying in that process. And so it was really serendipitous in so many ways. But there's a book by Dr. Martha Atkins called Signposts in Dying. They told me about that book. I downloaded it as an ebook. I think you can buy it on Amazon, maybe as an ebook too. I read it on the couch one night at my parents' house when I was visiting. And that book is life-changing. Signposts in Dying. That's one of the key things I really want you to hear. Get that book. Read it. Whether you have somebody dying right now or not, read it. And then get a couple of copies, because somebody will have somebody dying, and that book will be good for them. It talks about what's happening, as the person is dying and as they're going through their different transitions. Things that you may think are weird are actually part of their process. And I really learned that from then. My mom would say some crazy things. I mean, literally batshit crazy. That's what, she would sit there and she would say, Otto's over there. That's her brother. He had passed away a long time ago. And I'd say, where is he? And she'd point over there. And I'd say, well, what's he doing? He's just looking at me. And that was her. And maybe he was there. I don't know. But I didn't try to fight it, because I read the book. I knew just to go with it. Was he saying anything? How's he look? And she didn't really engage in a lot of those conversations, but she said them to me. One of my friend, Lydia's partner, talked about when her mother was dying. Her mother would say, there's all these people coming in and they're going upstairs and going to the party. It was a one-story house. Now think about that for a minute. She's seeing people coming in, going upstairs to the party. So the things people are saying are not necessarily weird. It's part of their stuff. It's part of their process. And we get in the way. We say, Mom, nobody's there. No, you're not seeing anything. That just kind of jolts them out of that. And one of the things I learned was just to lovingly be there. Whatever they said was okay. Now, a month or so before my mom died, she got really, really sick. In fact, we thought it was the end. She had that kind of glazed over look. She was in the ICU. And we all took turns saying our goodbyes. My brothers and sisters, we went in one at a time. And I told her, she is out of it, right? But I knew she could hear me. And I said, Mom, Dad's okay. We're going to take care of him. And whenever you're ready, and it's good for you, you go. We'll miss you deeply. But you go. And then she said back to me, she said, remember. And I thought, she wants me to remember that she loves me. So I said, I'll always remember that you love me. And I went out, somebody else got their turn. And then all of a sudden she got better. The other weird thing that happened in there, and that happens sometimes, what we have to remember is we don't know that person's life. We may think we know them, we may think we've been connected, we know everything about them. We don't. And sometimes we get surprises. Every one of us came out of that ICU room, including your friends, saying, who in the hell is Bill? Because my dad's name was Joe. My mom was calling for Bill. We're going, what? And it's just like, okay, we just have to love her through this. We don't know what this is. One of the things I learned in this whole process was that people don't change. You know, my mom, before she was in the hospital, she was really stubborn at home. She wasn't supposed to be walking. She'd be walking. She'd fall, and that jiggled her brain. And we kind of kept going, and I kept thinking, Mom, why are you doing this? Why do you know? And I realized people don't change when they get old. They don't change when they're dying. They don't all of a sudden get nice. They're the way they are their whole life, and sometimes even more. Just let that be. You know, in the church that I went to, again, I was in the choir and playing guitar. It was the year of mercy in the church. The Pope had said, year of mercy. I'm not Catholic anymore, but at that point I was, or I don't go there. But every Sunday in the year of mercy, we sang this song called There's a Wideness in God's Mercy. Really a beautiful song. And that January to April time, when I was there on Sundays, that song would come on. I would be playing it, and I couldn't. I would be crying. Sometimes I had to leave. Because the kind of image that I had during this song was this beautiful, loving wideness of God's love, and my mom walking straight towards it, and it opening itself up so much to her. You know, she wasn't perfect. She wasn't. Yet God's mercy was so big that it just invited her in. So that really helped me to be present with her in her dying days when she would do things that people didn't understand or say things without judgment. Who cares who Bill was? He obviously meant a lot to her. And we just have to say that's their path. And, you know, love them in it. So, one day, she had been doing pretty bad again. I'd seen her on Friday, and on Monday I woke up. I wasn't planning to go, but I thought I want to go. I don't know why. I can go, so I want to go. I called my driver, Tony, and I said, Tony, I need to work, but I really want to go see my mom. Will you drive me down to Victoria? I'll put you in the hotel overnight. You can drive back in the morning. I'll pay you so much. And will you do that? And he said yes, he would. So we waited till a little bit later in the day and took off. And it was horrible weather. The 3-hour trip took 5 hours. And my sister is texting us the whole time saying, Mom's really doing bad. And so we got there. I went to the hospital. It's probably 9 o'clock at night now. And the hospice nurse is there talking to my sister. And she's saying, you know, it's not going to be tonight, but probably somewhere in the next 72 hours. Now, my mom was in that kind of death stupor, glazed over eyes. And when they're in that place, it is really hard for them to do anything. It's hard for them to move. It's hard for them to say anything, to move their mouth, anything. Yet, when I was over there talking to the hospice nurse with my sister, my mom turned her head and started going, la, 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 really loud. That took so much energy. And I went over to her. And I kissed her and said, I'm here. I got your message. And we're going to help you. So I decided that night I wasn't leaving. I was going to take the first shift, and I was going to stay the whole time. Somebody else wants to be there, that's fine, but I was not leaving. So my sister left, and we arranged who was going to take when, and the hospice nurse was going to leave, but she didn't. And after a little while, she noticed that Mom's feet and hands were getting cold. Now, as people are dying, their body wants to keep their brain and their heart alive. And so it pulls the energy from the extremities to keep it there, so the hands and the feet get really cold. So her hands and feet started getting cold, and the nurse said, "This is really weird. I think this is going to go faster than we think." Now, I'm sitting there with her, and I'm just talking to her. First of all, in the months before that, when I was with her, I really was with her. I would rub her feet. You know, I would pull her over in the bed. I'd go over on the other side and get in the bed with her and hold her. Other people stand and look down at her. I'd be right there with her. And she loved that. She would laugh and we would talk because we were right there. And she, in that time, I had just learned to be very present. I think there's the time and the place and the need for someone to take care of details. That was not my job. My job was, I knew in my heart, to be as present as I could with her in this process. So that night I was. Now, I didn't get in the bed with her. She was in too much pain for that. But I talked to her. And I talked to her about her life and all the wonderful things and how she loved her kids and how she, lived and all the things she did. And after a while, I started saying, when you cross over and you go over and are with them, you leave us and you go be with them, I'm going to clap for you. I'm going to clap for the woman who loved her children so ferociously, like a lioness. I'm going to clap for the woman who created special programs in our town for the mentally retarded because we had a sister who needed that. I'm going to clap, and I went through all the things she was and did and just said I was going to clap for her. Now, I texted my sister a while before and said, "Come back." But she lived an hour away, and I knew, the hospice nurse came to me. She was such a great coach. I'm so happy she stayed, and I think she realized it was going to happen quicker. That she told me what was happening, and she would say, "This is what this is. This is what this is." And then she said, "These are the last breaths." And I looked down at my phone to text my sister and say, "Hurry, if you're here, hurry." And when I looked up, she was gone, which happens a lot. They often leave when we're not looking. Like in the moment it's finally theirs, they get to go. And lots of times people will walk out and they'll die while they walked out. It's their choice. And they often sneak off. That's what she did. She snuck out on me. But that experience of being with her, I wouldn't trade that for anything in my life. My dad was sick at the same time. In fact, during all of that 9 months, one time my dad was on the hospital on one floor, my mom was on the hospital on the other floor. They were both really sick. It was just a crazy time. My dad went through a lot of stuff right away, then settled down, and my dad and I, though we weren't ever really, really close, I went to see him a fair amount in the assisted living, but I didn't feel like it was mine to be with him in the end. I had just gone through all of that energy with my mom, and it had taken a lot from my business, and not that I made that decision for business reasons, but it just didn't feel like mine to do. And in the end, because I wasn't there in the end with him, my sister was. And that was a profound situation for her too. But I did go see him a number of times, but right before he died. And I was about to leave, and I knew that would probably be one of the last times I saw him, if not the last time. And I said, "Daddy, I gotta go back to San Antonio." And he said, "Wait." And he said, "Always remember that we love you." And I felt like my mother was standing right there telling him what to say. The hospice nurse was in the room. Her eyes were like big, like, oh, do you see what's happening here? And I did, and I talked to him, and then I ended up leaving, and he did pass within a few days. You have to make hard decisions, sometimes when people are dying, and none of that process is easy. Years later, my friend Lydia got ill. She and I had reconnected during my mom's time. And so we got to spend some good time. I wasn't there in her passing. The family wanted just the family there. But we had some very good connections that I will remember for my whole life. Now I've reconnected with another friend, Scott, who was with Carolyn. He's 80 and strong as a horse. And I'm glad that he and I have reconnected. At some point, either he will be with me in my dying, or I will be with him, or I hope to have that opportunity. It's his choice, but I would be honored. And I know so much more now. So there are a number of takeaways. I'm going to kind of get my notes here. But I want to just kind of emphasize at the end. I'm going to bring this all to a close. Number one, if you ever have the nudge to reconnect with somebody, do. That's your heart talking to you. Get that book, Signposts in Dying. Maybe get several copies. Read it now. It will help you somewhere in your life. You're not inviting it. You're preparing yourself, because it's going to happen. Someone around you is going to pass away. And you can sort of be there, or you can powerfully be there. People don't change once they get old. Don't expect them to change. Like, why don't you should be nice now. You're about to die. No, they don't. They keep doing what they do. And so that's a sign for us too, for me too. We don't want to keep doing the shit we do, because we'll be doing that at our death. So the more we can grow, the more we can be better. Just be with them. Do puzzles. Talk. Wheel them around in their wheelchair if they're in one. Look at the flowers. Just be with them. If you can physically get close and you feel comfortable, get close. Be brave. Pull them over in the bed. Sit with them. Hug them. Whatever. Have no regrets. Say what you want to say. Don't leave anything unsaid. Have no regrets. And when you're with them, remember, it's about them. It's not about you. And dare to connect deeply with people that are living. Not everybody. You can't connect with everybody deeply. There are probably people, maybe some high eyes think they can. I can't. But the few that are really brought into your life, connect deeply. And I want to share one more story. And the moral of the story is they hear everything. So when my mom was in the ICU the first time, we thought she was dying. And I said, whenever you're ready, you go. And she said, remember. She got better. She went back to the nursing home. My dad couldn't take care of her. I wanted to bring her to our house to die, but the family wanted her to be in the same city as my dad, and so they put her in a nursing home. And so after she got better, she went back to the nursing home. And there's one day, and she's fairly alert, but I said, Mom, I gotta go. It's back to San Antonio. And she said, wait. And she said, when you're ready and it's good for you, you go. And I said, that's what I told you. And she said, I know. They hear everything. So say what you want to say. Just that you don't think they're listening, it doesn't matter. Say it. Leave nothing left unsaid. And dare to connect. Dare to love deeply. I hope this video has been helpful. Have a good day.